Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Geek to me radio, da 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 da. Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to a brand new episode of Geek to Me Radio. Tonight, we are joined by Eisner-nominated writer Samuel Sattin, talking about the brand new manga Unico Awakening. We'll talk about how he adapted this, his work in the genre, and more. Stand by. We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all. And for those of you driving around the greater St. Louis area tonight listening to this broadcast on the Big 550 KTRS, hello to all of you. Thank you very much for tuning in after Outdoors Dan. If you are streaming us online on the KTRS stream or on the app, hello to you out there. And of course, if you're hearing us after the fact in the podcast version on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts, we appreciate you finding us there and listening. No video tonight. You may remember from me the past couple of weeks I've mentioned I'm out of town. At this particular time, I'm currently on a flight from Connecticut to St. Louis after leaving Terrificon. I'll have all sorts of stories and hopefully a lot of great interviews coming back from that event. So you'll have that to look forward to in September. Next week, we'll be joined by Freddie Weidman talking about the music of Batman Cape Crusader on Amazon Prime. So you've got a week to get caught up on that series because we're going to probably talk some spoilers on that now that it's been out for a month or so. And we'll have 3-time Eisner Award-winning artist Rick Burchett in studio with us as well. Possibly some other surprises. We'll see. So prepare yourselves for that next week. But right now, brand new show. You know I love you guys. I don't want to leave you with a pre-recorded or best of, I should say, segment. It's not something you've heard before or spliced together thing. This is a brand new show. This is a guest who I've not had on the show before. I'm very excited, so let's dive right in. Right now I'm talking with Eisner-nominated writer Samuel Sattin about a brand new graphic novel, Unico Awakening. It's already garnering a lot of great praise. Samuel, thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I was looking over all the stuff you've done, and my goodness, a half hour will barely scratch the surface on all this stuff. But my niece will be thrilled because she always tells me when she listens to my radio show, you don't do enough anime stuff. So this will be great for her. But I know there's a big difference between manga and anime. A lot of people conflate the two. I'm guilty in some cases. So if you would just start our listeners out with a bit of what the main difference is between the two forms.
Sure, yeah. So manga is just the Japanese word for comics. So that's pretty much what manga is. Manga is pen on paper. And then anime is the Japanese portmanteau for animation. So basically manga is our comic is the written form, kind of the paper form, and then anime takes it to the next level, to a different level. It animates the story. So in the industry, however, manga is often adapted into anime, which is why I think people kind of conflate the two sometimes.
A lot like Robotech, which I'm familiar with. It's both a comic form and obviously it's I grew up in the 80s, so watching Robotech and things like that, it's the anime form as well. So a lot of times there's a great deal of crossover.
Oh, yes, very much so. Absolutely, just like that. Yeah, there's so much crossover. And and unlike with a lot of adaptations we see in the United States and abroad, in manga, it's often one-to-one in terms of the adaptation. Like, you'll look at the comic, and it will be exactly what you see, but in color in the actual animation.
And I know we can go down a rabbit hole here, but I'm curious. A lot of times they've tried to do adaptations into live action movies, and I feel like they just never quite get the aesthetic right. Do you think there's something about the anime and the manga art forms that don't quite lend themselves well to live action adaptations? Like, for example, The Ghost in the Shell that came out with Scarlett Johansson. I still go back to the cartoon every time.
Absolutely. I mean, it is very hard to do a live action adaptation of a manga or anime. I mean, it has been done. It can be done, well. But the majority of them, the problem is when you're looking at the art style itself, it's so dynamic and so stylistic that it's really hard to translate the movement and the world building, all that stuff into live action, especially if it's really stylized. So I know that, the Cowboy Bebop adaptation, for example, the original show, the anime, is so incredibly well done, and the characters move in such exciting ways. It's really stylized, really stylistic. It's really, it's just cool to look at. And to translate that into live action, people can't move like they can in animation. So it's like, the body can do more interesting things in animation. That's with perspective and all these different things. But when you're working with live action, you just can't do that stuff. So it has to be, I think it's possible, but you have to treat it like it's its own thing. You can't try to do a one-to-one adaptation in live action. You have to make it kind of unique and make it stand on its own. And I think that's the problem that a lot of adaptations have had with bringing it from one medium to another.
And when it comes to Unico Awakening, this is such a cool... I saw the glorious trailer that was on your website, and if you're listening right now, you should check it out after this interview. It's Samuel Sattin with 2Ts.com. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. If you're hearing us after the fact in the podcast form, scroll down to the bottom of the page. We'll have a link to Samuel's website, and you can see this trailer. But boy, that trailer grabs me. I want an anime. I want a cartoon of this now already. Talk a little bit about adapting this work and making the graphic novel, the process of it, if you could.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So, dating as far as adapting the work, it goes back a little bit. Around 2019, one of my dear friends, Eb Aoki, who's really all over the manga scene, just everything that is manga, Deb's part of it. And she introduced me to a couple people who, in turn, eventually let me know that Tezuka Productions was possibly looking for pitches. Now, Tezuka Productions is the namesake of Osamu Tezuka, who is considered the god of...
Absolutely.
Right? So he's kind of like a combination of like Walt Disney, Charles Schultz, and Mobius. He's got like this incredible work. And he created the modern manga and anime industries in Japan. And so he's kind of, I got into his work years ago, and I just became obsessed. I love everything. I love so much. I love what he did for comics and for manga and just for storytelling in general. And so when I got the chance to be able to pitch something to Tezuka Productions, my jaw dropped, and it dropped even further when they accepted it.
Wow.
Because I decided to, pitch them a reimagining of Unico, because the character was so fascinating, and nothing had really been done with the character since the 80s that was really, was capable of really, doing justice to the character and the story. And so I decided to, so when I got the go-ahead for them to do that, I started to look for an artist team with the help of an agent in Japan, and we landed on, we found Guri Hiru, who is absolute brilliant. The artist team, they're two women who work out of Saitama, which is close to Tokyo, and they are absolutely ingenious in the way that they combine both Japanese and American comic styles.
Yeah, I saw their work on Superman Smashes the Klan, because we had Gene on to talk about that, and that was he was very excited to work with them as well.
Oh yeah, great book, and Gene's great. And yeah, I know that they did a wonderful work on Superman Smashes the Klan. It's a beautiful book, and they actually just won the Eisner of the Year too for It's Jeff.
Fantastic!
Yes, they did. They're really masterful, and it's an honor to be working with them.
So again, was this something that you had obviously had a great love for this character in this thing? Were they accepting pitches for stuff, or did you just kind of take a chance and say, hey, you know what? This character is kind of languishing and something should be done with it. And did you just cold call pitch it? How did that process happen for you?
Well, so one of my friends used to work at Tezuka Productions. His name's Vince, and he was able to introduce me to some of the people there, and I learned that they would be open to pitches. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, this would be the most amazing thing in the world. I love Osamu Tezuka, but I have to really make this compelling, because I'm not just going to come with them with it, because sometimes people just come to companies and they say, or publishers or whatever it happens to be, and they say, I'd love to adapt this character to do something with it, but I don't know what. But I was like, okay, I need to come up with, a real solid idea. And so, I spent a lot of time working on it. And I think that when they saw it, they were really happy with the direction that this was intended to go in. And so, they were receptive, and they said yes. And so we were able to develop this story from there.
It's interesting because I'm always fascinated by people's origin stories. We cover a lot of superhero genre stuff on my radio show, talking artists and writers. Some people you'll talk to and they're like, yeah, I originally went in for bioscience, but I ended up working as a film director or whatever else. You got your MFA in comics, for crying out loud, from California College of Art. So this had been something you always knew you wanted to do.
Well, and so I started out as, I was either going to become one of two things. I was going to either become a translator or a writer. And so I really like language a lot. And so I was thinking about trying to become a translator or a writer, and then I chose the writing direction. And I started out just writing pure prose, but I always loved comics. It just, ever since I was young, I was always the comic book shop every week, where I grew up and outside of Denver, Colorado. And I was just, I fell in love with anime and then manga, and it became such a big part of my life that I just dove in, head first into that medium, and read everything that I could, and then began writing everything that I could. And so, nothing, speaks to me more than comics.
Mm-hmm.
I find so much that's worthwhile in that medium that I'll always, be the first person to, sing its praises to anybody who asks.
And had I known you could get a degree in comics, my gosh, I may have gone for an MFA. I wouldn't have stopped with just my bachelor's degrees. Who knew? But that's so.
It was the first one. It was the first program.
Oh,
in the
okay.
United States. And I was a member of the first inaugural class.
Wow.
So we were the first. We were the guinea pig class. We were the first, year one. And so, and it's California College of the Arts, and it was it's incredible experience, but way more grueling than I thought it would be, actually. So, it's an incredible program, and I think now more sprouting up in the United States, but ours was the first. So
that's amazing to think about. Have you gone back since you got the degree, and have you gone back and kind of see how the program has changed, or are they still pretty much sticking to the same curriculum, or has it evolved? Did you go back and check and look?
Oh yeah, I go back. I have quite a few friends that teach the program, and people who, and I know I'm good friends with the chair, and so I go back there quite often and see how things are going, or I hear the grapevine how things are proceeding, and they're making incredible strides. Yeah, they taking on great faculty. They have so many different tools workshops, and they actually have a really budding great manga program too.
Very cool.
Which has been really cool. So they're starting to actually get into that in a big way, because so many people are so interested in pursuing it that it needs to be a part of the curriculum.
And I'm wondering, you said you're a language guy. There's that left brain aspect. Is it hard, or I shouldn't say hard, is it a completely different skill set to write manga versus writing? Because obviously they are quite different. Manga versus American comic books, we could do a whole show just on that. But is it
Sure.
very much of a differentiation, trying to write one over another? We're going to pause right there, take a brief commercial break. We'll come back speaking more with Samuel Sattin right after this. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio on the Big 550. Please stand by.
Stronger than all the rest, this mighty robot will pass the test. Oh, let's hear him, so we cheer him, the amazing Astrobot.
Hi, this is Matthew Waterson. I'm the voice of Magneto, Master of Magnetism in X-Men 97. And you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Welcome back to Geek to Me Radio. I'm your host, James Enstall, out of town at the moment, but a brand new show for you nonetheless. We'll get right back to my guest, Samuel Sattin. First, I want to make sure we tell you about Bugs, Comics, and Games. He's got some manga there. He's also got back issues. He's got brand new comic books. If you're wanting to check out Gail Simone's new Uncanny X-Men, which has been coming in at rave reviews. Maybe you want to get the current Batman run. Maybe you just want to check out some Spider-Man titles. Maybe you want to delve into the back issues. Hey, there used to be this great comic book series called Web of Spider-Man. I want to see what that's about. Or you're still enjoying that big billion-dollar Deadpool and Wolverine craze and you just want to get into some mutant goodness. Go talk to Larry at Bugs, Comics, and Games. He's got whatever it is you could possibly want, and tell him you heard about it on Geek to Me Radio. Make sure you join the Avengers Club while you're there. That way you start saving money on all of your purchases immediately while you enjoy your hobby. I always get, he jokes with me and teases me, because I get the Golden Age backboards, and I trim them down to fit in the Silver Age bags, because if you buy the Silver Age backboards, they slide around a little, and I'm very persnickety. He laughs about this every time, but it's just one of those little quirks. We all have them. Don't you judge me. But you should be getting your bags and board, your toys, your games, your Pokemon cards, your boxes for storage, everything you need for comics, as well as the comics themselves, from Larry at Bugs, Comics, and Games. Maybe you're outside the greater St. Louis or St. Charles area. Go to Instagram.com. Find Bugs Comics A-N-D Games. Bugs Comics and Games. Follow him there. He posts stuff, and you can buy directly from him. Maybe your local comic book store doesn't have something. Maybe there's a variant issue that you want that he doesn't, or that your local comic book store doesn't have that Larry might have. Message him. If you don't see it on his Instagram, follow him. Send him a message and say, hey, I'm looking for this. Do you have it? Chances are he probably will. He's got a huge stock of back issues, and he's always got variant covers in. It's my kryptonite is variant covers. But he's always got cool stuff in the store. And if you are in the greater St. Louis, St. Charles area, you really have no excuse why you haven't popped in already. Right there on Bryan Road in O'Fallon, Missouri. Easily accessible from Highway 70 or from the Page extension. Although I will say the construction on Highway 70 right around Bryan Road, you might be better off going in through 364. However you get there, make sure you ask Larry about the Avengers Club. Make sure you tell him you heard about it on Geek to Me Radio, and make sure you go pick up some comics. This is a great time to get in with all these movies, and D23 just dropped a bunch of news about all their stuff they've got going on. So no matter where you are in your comic collecting journey, give Larry a call. Bugs, Comics, and Games. Follow him on Facebook as well. Subscribe to his page there. Very proud to have Bugs, Comics, and Games as the official comic book sponsor here on Geek to Me Radio. Before we took that last break, we were chatting with Samuel Sattin about Unico, The Awakening, and I was asking him what the difference as far as writing American comics versus manga.
I think that it both is and it isn't. I think that manga is comics, but it does have there's a lot of crossover in visual narrative and how people tell stories. But there's also a very specific way that manga, they're like manga hallmarks, the way that, stories are told, how many panels you have on the page, some of the emoticons and ways that you express emotion, and also just some of the storytelling aspects. I mean, in the West, this is not a bad thing. I'm not saying this like it's a bad thing, but, we often have that kind of set dramatic structure where you have, rising action climax and falling action. And it's kind of like, you have this very, this kind of traditional story arc. And I think that, just different cultures have different ways of doing that. So, Japanese story arcs can be a little more circuitous. And I think that's really exciting. And they can be really detail heavy and really interesting. And so, I really like, I think it's important to learn from that aspect of things as well, because it's not just the art style, it's also the storytelling.
Yeah, that makes sense. And being a left brain person, I know, some people are very left brain and are the math, the linguistics, and then you've got the right brain where the art is and everything like that. I've talked to artists and writers who do both, like Jerry Ordway and Dan Jurgens, who have definite ideas about what the art should look like. Are you a very strict left brain person where you're like, I'm going to leave the art entirely up to you and I'm not going to give input? Or do you have a good collaboration with the artist you work with? How does the process work for you personally?
Oh, I love collaboration. It's one of the things I love most about comics, manga, and this industry and the comics industry in general. I definitely give a lot of guidance, and I describe every panel, I describe every page. I'm pretty meticulous. But then at the same time, when the artist decides to do something different, I not only allow it, I support it and encourage it, because it's a collaborative effort. Part me, part them. So part the artist, part the writer. So it's just as much theirs as it is mine in that regard. So I'll often face a situation where I'll put a certain amount of panels on a page, or I'll describe something on a page in a certain way, and the artist will look at it and say, this is good, I like this, but it really, this needs to be moved to there, and this needs to go over here, and this doesn't really work. And I'll be like, yeah, you're right. And so then I'll go and I'll figure out how to make it work so that it does what it's supposed to do. And that comes from, working with people who just, working with people who you get to trust what their process, they know what they're doing,
Sure.
So, which is one of the best things about collaboration, but which is not for everybody, but I really enjoy it.
And on this particular project, Unico Awakening, this was a Kickstarter funded thing, which I see so many people going to Kickstarter because they have full creative control. They don't have to worry about one of the publishers kind of coming in and mudding their idea of what they wanted. But I know people always say Kickstarters are a lot of work. How did you find the process doing Unico Awakening on Kickstarter? Was it fun? Was it just rolling a boulder uphill? And now that it's funded, what have you learned from the process?
Oh my, yeah, it is definitely it's an arduous process doing a Kickstarter. It's a lot of work, way more work than I anticipated. And I was told it was going to be more work than I anticipated. The person I was working with, who was helping me who was basically managing the campaign, was like, this is going to be really hard, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know. And then it was really hard. And I was like, oh, okay. I understand. But it's a lot of work. The reason we did a Kickstarter for it as opposed to just going straight to a publisher is because we thought with this character in particular, at least I thought with this character in particular, that, yes, he's cute and he's a unicorn, but I didn't think that people would really get it unless we showed it to them.
Yeah.
That was kind of my feeling on this project. And when we did show it to them, we received a lot of support, and the Kickstarter did well, and we were able to really show, see, this is what people love this character, and the story needs to be told to a new generation of readers. And so, which is why we were just completely and totally just fell into our dream come true when Scholastic decided to, pick it up and provide a series and structure for the whole entire thing. And that went above and beyond what we could ever have expected. And we're just, so excited to be able to work on it.
And I know Scholastic as a kid from, we'd have the book fairs come through school and when I was younger, and I'd always order my Choose Your Own Adventure books for those of you other 80s kids out there who know what I'm talking about. But that's so cool. And I know this looks on the surface, especially when you watch the trailer that you have on your website, again, SamuelSattin.com. You can see the trailer right there for this project. But it looks like it's a kid thing. You kind of see, oh, look, cute little unicorn. But it's adults who seem to gravitate more toward the manga genre. What do you attribute that to? We're going to come right back with Samuel Sattin's take on that right after this. One more commercial break, I promise, and that's it. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio on the Big 550 KTRS. Please stand by.
Hi, I'm Bex Taylor Klaus from Voltron. I play Pidge, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
We're back. Here we are, ready to finish off the final segment here on Geek to Me Radio. The show would not be possible without the support of our premier sponsor, the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau. It's such a great place. And I say this honestly because I'm down there a lot. When we're thinking about, hey, let's go out and walk Grimlock, we go down to St. Charles because it's a great place. There's a lot of stuff to see. It's always buzzing, especially right there on North and South Main Street. It's such a cool place. The cobblestones, it's got that atmosphere. Some places have atmosphere. St. Charles has great atmosphere. Maybe you haven't been down there before, or maybe you're just not familiar. They've got a great tour you can take at the CVB if you pop in there and tell them you want to hit the bricks. They have a Hit the Bricks tour where they'll take you up and down Main Street with a guide who really knows Main Street. I know some of these guides personally. They know their stuff. Trust me, they wouldn't put you out there with someone who wasn't sure what they were talking about. It's just a fascinating thing to do, and you get to see all these historic buildings and find out some lore and history of St. Charles and St. Charles Main Street in particular. There's always something going on down there. If it's not just on a self-guided tour, or if you take their tour, there's a festival going on. There's a street fair. There's music. They just had part of Frenchtown closed off because they had live music there on 2nd Street. Just such a cool place to go, no matter what time of the year, whether it's their Christmas Traditions Festival, celebrating 50 years this year, the longest running and largest Christmas festival in the country. If you've never been down there, this is something you really should experience. If you like Christmas, if you're into that holiday season, like that's your holiday. Some people, hey, I'm a 4th of July person, I like fireworks. Or hey, I'm a Halloween person, I like the candy and the costumes. That's how some people are about Christmas. And this is such a cool environment to experience Christmas. And you can literally go there on Wednesday nights and do a Dickensian stroll on these cobblestone streets, buildings that were built back in the early 1800s, and all of a sudden you're interacting with Charles Dickens and Ebenezer Scrooge and the Ghost of Christmas Present. It's just such a cool thing and a cool time. Make your plans now to head out, no matter what time you decide to go, no matter what type of environment you want to stay in, from a hotel to a bed and breakfast to an RV park, whatever it is. Start your trip at the website, discoverstcharles.com. That website again, discoverstcharles.com. As we always say, it's an historically good time. Before we took that last break, we were wrapping up our chat with writer Samuel Sattin, and I asked him, it seemed like adults, even though like Unico Awakening, for example, seems to be on the surface geared towards children, adults seem to be the biggest consumers of manga.
Well, the manga genre, the manga medium, it's just, there's so many different kinds of stories.
Sure.
And when you go to Japan in particular, you see everybody reads manga. Everybody, all ages, adults, kids, everybody is reading manga. It's just a thing that's part of the culture. The story, you have these stores that are, 4 to 8 floors of manga, just wall to wall. It's just a huge part of the culture. And which is, for a comics fan like myself, it's just it's a dream. It's amazing. And so for in that regard though, a lot of manga is in just in general in Japan, the age group separation is a little more blurred for who can read what.
Right.
So we're a little bit more in the United States, and I'm not saying this is for good or for bad, just kind of how it is. In the U.S., we're a little more, we have, different categories for readers. And so, like, in Japan, while a kid might, an 8-year-old kid might read something for 14-year-olds and it wouldn't matter. Here, when a kid brings home a book for teens and they're 8 years old and their parents see that that's really bloody or really suggestive or it has a lot of things that aren't really appropriate, for that age group, they don't want their kids really, reading it, right? So it's like, so that's kind of like what, one of the real niches that Unico serves is though while it really does appeal to adults, and we've heard a lot of adults who really, really enjoy the book, including myself, and it's also it's made for a younger audience. So it's made for kids who can get the scope and the hallmarks of a manga without having to while not having to kind of like go to a place where they might not, be ready for it at that point.
Makes sense. I know I remember as a kid growing up watching things like The Last Unicorn and The Secret of Nim and things like that. And I'm a softie, Samuel. So this isn't going to make me cry. Is it Unico Awakening? I'm not going to cry at this one too, am I?
Guarantee anything. Can't guarantee.
Fair enough.
Actually, I grew up watching the same films, and they really, and I still love those movies.
Yeah.
Last Unicorn, I love, and then Black Cauldron, Everything
Yes.
Story, books like that, And this is kind of like this. I feel like Unico is in that category.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been warned. Then I'll enter at my own risk. That's
You've been
fine.
warned.
You've done films to graphic novels, like award-winning films like Wolfwalker's Song of the Sea, The Secret of the Kells. You've adapted these films to graphic novels. And I remember, again, going back to my youth, Marvel Comics and DC Comics used to do movie adaptations into comic books. Has the process changed very much, especially when you're taking on that type of genre?
I don't think I'm actually, it's a great question. I wonder how the process has changed. I found it to be really interesting because I was able to work with, it's an animation studio. It's Cartoon Saloon. They're out of Ireland, and they do lovely, lovely films. And I was able to take those. Their problem was they couldn't figure out the best way to transform them from, films into graphic novels because the medium is just different. And so what I did was my role was to really take the films and figure out how they could really, be an exciting read for a kid. So as opposed to just doing a, straight, kind of like, I think, a straight adaptation, just taking everything verbatim and kind of moving it through that way.
Right.
I tried to do something that was a little bit more paced and that could fit the medium. And so, yeah, I've done quite a few of those now, and I'm doing another one, and that process is pretty interesting. I think it depends on whether you're adapting from, how close the adaptation has to be. Do they want it to be incredibly close and incredibly faithful? Do they find that it deviates from the norm? I think that's really where you get either you have to adhere to the exact way of the story, or you get some leeway.
And follow-up question, adapting films to graphic novels, I said at the very beginning of our interview, I loved the animated trailer that's on your website for Unico Awakening. How are we going to do? Is there a graphic novel to film adaptation for this in mind? Can you say anything? Are you contractually obligated to say no comment?
I'm contractually obligated to say no comment. Okay. I'll just say that I hope so. Yeah,
it'd be great.
I think it would make a wonderful animated series.
Absolutely it would. And again, talking about the graphic novel, Unico Awakening, this is volume 1. Are there other stories planned? You already have simmering in your head. What's up for volume 2, volume 3? How far have you planned out?
Yeah. We've actually, volume 2 is completed, is being worked on as we speak. It's being done as we speak. Volume 3, I just finished the script for.
Wow.
And to start on volume 4. So, I have a whole summary, and I know how everything ends, but I can't say a word.
Okay,
So.
I wouldn't press you. I wouldn't dare do that. Will it be, or are there more Kickstarters in the future, or is Scholastic like, no, dude, we got this, we're handling it?
Scholastic has handling the entire thing, and they are fantastic.
Yeah.
So the Kickstarter was the way for us to kind of bring the concept into light and to make a book to really get the book moving. And then Scholastic has kind of expanded the frontiers in every way. So now we have the ability to create a series that is a dream come true.
And I want to make sure we just got a couple minutes left here, but boy, you got 21 books on Goodreads with nearly 12,000 ratings. So obviously, you know what you're doing, and people tend to like what you're doing. That's really cool to see that we're getting this. I'm excited that we're going to have extra volumes. One of the books you worked on, I believe, co-author, The Essential Anime Guide, 50 Iconic Films. Just to give listeners an idea, what are your top 3 anime films?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Now I gotta really contend with that one. One of them is probably, of course, Akira, because it's absolutely phenomenal.
Absolutely.
One of it, Katsuhiro Otomo, just one of the all-time greats. As far as my other 2 favorites, it's probably something by Satoshi Kon. Either Perfect Blue, Money Actress, or Paprika. And then, what is my third favorite film? That is a very difficult question. Maybe Tekken King Creed. I have to think about it, though. I'm sure after this, I will completely totally. What was that?
That's always the way.
Thinking, I forgot this one. I forgot this. There's just so many wonderful films. But and I also really love the Memories anthology by Katsuhiro Otomo too.
Oh, sure.
That's incredible as well. There's so many. Oh, and then of course there's all the Miyazaki films. I love Princess Mononoke.
Yes.
So is Nausicaa Valley of the Winds, and I love all those movies too. So there's just so much that it really depends on what I'm in the mood for.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Again, that's why I always say the order and the preference can change depending on what day of the week it is and how I woke up in the morning. So I understand.
Great way to look. Absolutely.
And I like to brag because here in St. Louis, we've got St. Louis Anime with Voltron, the 84 series, which was done by KPLR. Did a lot of work on that here. We've got the giant Voltron statue down in the Central West End that's like twice my size. So were you a Voltron fan as well?
Huge Voltron fan. I love the new show too, and the comic adaptation. Yeah, huge Voltron fan. Since I was a kid, I loved it.
So my last question then before I let you go, because I know we're coming up in the end, if you could pilot any of the lions, which one would you choose to pilot?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think Blue Lion.
Okay. Just that
Yeah,
water
Blue Lion.
water vibe?
No, that's the water vibe, yeah. I like the water vibe, and I like also that one, and also the it seemed like the pilot was the lead hot-headed of all of them.
Very true.
So, yeah, that was what I really enjoyed that character and that lion.
Perfect. And again, if you're listening right now, make sure you check out Unico Awakening. Samuel Sattin, tell people where they can find you online, social media handles, and things like that.
Sure. You can find me at Samuel Sattin, both on Twitter, X, and on Instagram as well. So Samuel Sattin for more information. Get in touch.
And we'll put links to those in the show notes as well. If you're listening in the podcast version of this, just scroll down to the bottom of the page. It's been an absolute delight to talk to you. I always love talking with people who are more knowledgeable than me, especially in an art form like anime and manga. Samuel Sattin, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
There he goes, Samuel Sattin. Make sure you follow him. We'll have links to those websites and social media handles that he mentioned down in the show notes. If you're listening to this after the fact in the podcast form, scroll down and you'll be able to see that. Don't forget to check out Justice League Revisited, the new podcast I'm doing. I say new, it's almost been a year now, for crying out loud. That's crazy to think about. Susan Eisenberg, the voice of Wonder Woman from Justice League, the animated series, and I do this great podcast where we break down each episode in its original airing order, and we bring in writers, artists. We had Glenn Murakami, who designed a lot of the stuff alongside Bruce Timm for season 1 of Justice League. We talked to the people who did the music for it. We talked to the actors, the directors, the writers of these episodes. It's so much fun to do, and hopefully it's a lot of fun to listen to as well. Check out Justice League Revisited wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you subscribe there, and it makes Susan very happy if you'd leave a 5-star review. She reads them to me. She literally sends me the reviews on text messages. Look, we got another one. She's very excited, and it's always fun to see when people like what you put out there in the world. I want to make sure we thank Joey V, my executive producer, because I told you before, I'm not in studio right now. This is a pre-recorded show, brand new show, but I didn't leave you with some best of. But Joey V helped me assemble the show and put all the work together. All I did was say the words. He's the one, the brains behind the operation, if you will, putting this all together. So huge shout out and thank you to Joey V for always making this show sound and look as good as it does. We'll be back next week with video, and we'll have Freddie Weidman, the composer from Batman Caped Crusader, coming in to talk about the music. 3-time Eisner Award-winning artist Rick Burchett, who worked on Batman the Animated Series, will be there with us as well to talk about his thoughts on the series. And we might have a couple of surprised guests for you as well, so stick around for that. That'll be next Sunday here on Geek to Me Radio. Make an appointment. Set your calendar. 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, every Sunday night without fail. I do a show, so make sure you check us out, and we appreciate that you have done so already. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/GeekToMeRadio, and go ahead and follow me on Instagram and Twitter, too. I don't really give out my social media handles as much as I should. It's Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and Instagram, same handle, at Geek to Me Radio. We're going to be telling you a lot about Two Rivers Comic Con. We're coming up on the 9-month window here for when Two Rivers Comic Con is going to launch. That's going to be a huge thing, and I want to see all of you there in St. Charles Memorial Day weekend. So start putting that in your calendar now and make plans. Other than that, that's going to do it. Thank you to Bugs Comics and Games. Thank you to the Greater St. Charles Convention and Visitors Bureau. And of course, thank you to Samuel Sattin for his time. And until next week, my friends.
It's not in the way you watch I zombie. It's not in the way you watch The Flash. It's not in the way you love Scotty Young art. It's not in the way you play Mario Kart. It's not in the way you look when you make Game of Thrones references. That's a show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's a show. This is Geek to Me Radio.
Thank you, Japan. Good night.